Thank you so much. Look, I've had a productive day. I'm here in Vientiane, Laos with the Prime Minister. This is Prime Minister Trudeau's first trip to Laos. In fact, it's the first trip to Laos by any Canadian Prime Minister. And this year we celebrate 50 years of diplomatic relationships. The Prime Minister was able to share with the Prime Minister of Laos that we are upgrading the embassy here in Laos to a full embassy. And we're actually also going to be doing that in Cambodia as well. So we'll have full embassies in Cambodia, full embassy here in Laos. The Prime Minister is here for the third ASEAN Summit, also a first for a Canadian Prime Minister. I think what you're seeing in that is the importance of the ASEAN region to Canada. It's the fifth largest economy in the world at about $3.8 trillion in size, and the third largest population in the world in this region, in the ASEAN, about 700 million people. We've had several bilateral meetings. I think I was just adding it up before coming in to talk to you. I think we've had a total of 7 today, and we were able to share with the countries of Thailand and Cambodia, but also Laos, that we will have trade missions into those countries next year. So since the release of the Indo-Pacific strategy, of course, I've taken trade missions to markets like Singapore, Vietnam, and Malaysia, Philippines, and Indonesia a little later this year in December, and then a new suite of trade and business missions for next year. And we also had the opportunity to talk to the many leaders about the status of and progress of the Canada-ASEAN Free Trade Agreement, which is now well under negotiations. We expect to be able to conclude that by 2025, and we had good progress on those conversations. But from a whole range of issues, whether it is cooperation on energy security, on fighting climate change, on the economic collaboration that creates opportunities for Canadian businesses to grow in this dynamic region. We touched on all of those ranges of topics today between the Prime Minister and the leaders that he met bilaterally thus far.
Oh, okay, I'll go first. Minister, they can Google this.
I thought I'd keep that part short so that you guys could ask questions.
I guess maybe I'll ask this. I think a lot of us are learning for the first time that trade with this region tripled since 2015. So I wonder if you can give us a sense of why, like what were some of the factors that helped do that, and then how do you keep that momentum forward, and could that momentum be endangered if we have a change of government, say, in a year's time?
Well, trade in this region, I think you're seeing it grow because it is indeed the fastest growing region in the world, and has been and is projected to be for some time. The Indo-Pacific strategy has put trade at the very center of it, which is, for us in Canada, why is it so important? It is because trade creates jobs and economic growth for those companies who decide to grow in this region. Some of the economies and countries who are already here as part of the ASEAN are also part of the CPTPP. So you would expect that countries like Vietnam and Malaysia, Singapore, who already are in the CPTPP, are also members of the ASEAN. So we have a little head start, if you will, there. And the trade missions are. You really do see the growth and the interests and the expansion of trade, because what you're seeing and what I see are hundreds of businesses and entrepreneurs and investors, including big investors in our pension plans and others in these very markets. And what do they look at to Canada? They look at the incredible talent pool that we have. They look at the incredible businesses that we have. We have great businesses across many sectors here. We've opened an agri-food office in Manila, and I think that I think trade in the way that we have done it, which is premised on also opportunities for small and medium-sized businesses or women-led businesses. You're seeing the interest because it's the businesses to businesses and the investors to the businesses that are finding opportunities in this market. I often say that as a government minister, I don't do the business, but what I do is I create the right conditions through government to government relationships, through trade missions, through investing in an Indo-Pacific strategy that has a whole number of strategies to facilitate and create greater opportunities for businesses to do business here, to do the kind of problem solving that you would through an agri-food office in Manila, or through the various CanChams that we are supporting here. CanCham stands for Canadian Chambers here in this region. So I think that Canadians are going to want to keep doing this, and I think we're going to have the right tools to do it, particularly if we continue to make the progress on the ASEAN-Canada FTA.
You were at the trilateral meeting with Australia and New Zealand. All three countries have faced threats from China, whether it's alleged foreign interference or cyber hacking. Can you talk about what was discussed when it came to China and how these three countries plan to counter those threats together?
Well, first, it was really excellent to meet with both Australia and New Zealand while here at the ASEAN. They have summits here as well, just as Canada, so good opportunity for us to get together. And we actually talked about a whole range of topics. In fact, we started with the CPTPP because Canada is the chair for this year's CPTPP, of which both Australia and New Zealand are a part of, and I'm looking forward to hosting my colleagues in Vancouver in November of this year. And in the context of free trade, rules-based trade, we also shared our reflections on, on China and on practices, whether it's economic coercion or or just how we are each experiencing those very issues. And I think it's really important that we talk about these issues together and that we find ways and modalities to collaborate. We're Five Eye partners, Canada, New Zealand, and Australia. We are like-minded democracies. We operate as trading partners, but we also operate here in the region. So we did share our reflections about our experiences with China, and I think what we came out of there is this commitment together to make sure that we continue to uphold rules-based trade and to work together.
At this meeting, Minister, the leaders talked about the Middle East and the position, but it's quite different when you see position from Indonesia or Malaysia. Is the difference of position in this conflict in the Middle East have any impact on negotiation on a trade agreement here?
No, it's not having an impact. I mean, the Canada-ASEAN FTA continues to, there's been many rounds of negotiation and progress is being made, and I fully expect that we will continue to make progress. It was a good discussion that we had with New Zealand and Australia about our approach in the Middle East. You've seen us issue joint statements, and of course, the call for a ceasefire has been one that Canada has been calling for, but also with Australia and New Zealand, the call and the need for de-escalation in the region, but also how we might get on a path towards a two-state solution was also part of the conversation around the Middle East.
Did you talk about this with Malaysia, for example?
It comes up because the issue of the Middle East comes up with all of our trading partners, and Canada has been very clear about about our position, and so we were able to, of course, share that with our colleagues bilaterally, including Malaysia.
Minister, you were also in the meeting with the Philippines today. Did that country ask Canada for more help with the South China Sea, and do you think Canada is doing enough to de-escalate tensions in that area?
It was a really good meeting with the Prime Minister of the Philippines, and of course, as part of our Indo-Pacific strategy, it's pretty broad, and it does include cooperation, including that in the South China Sea. In fact, the Philippine President acknowledged Canada's assistance and participation. You've seen Minister Blair here in the region. Most recently at the Shangri-La Dialogue, and there certainly was acknowledgement that Canada has stepped up and is doing this work, and it has been very much a part of the Indo-Pacific strategy, and I think you can expect that Canada will continue to collaborate in the region on a range of issues, including South China Seas.
Minister, you were saying that Canada wants to focus on promoting its rules-based government, working with like-minded parties. How does Canada bridge that gap. Some of these ASEAN nations want to increase trade with China. They want to do trade with Vladimir Putin. Malaysia's president wants to invite him to ASEAN next year. How do you promote your those ideals of democracy with certain governments who are looking to expand their trade with non-like-minded governments?
Well, I think that Canada always pursues trade, leading with values that are important to Canadians. When we are negotiating a free trade agreement, you would expect what you would expect in all of our agreements beyond what is in a usual trade agreement around market access. You would expect that there are provisions in there that crave for more inclusive growth for small and medium-sized businesses or those who've often been underrepresented in our respective economies. But you also see commitments to workers or to the environment, and you do see Canada's values shared. And when you are negotiating with countries, whether it's bilaterally or multilateral, as in the case of ASEAN, you can expect that Canada will not compromise its values. We will do this work and articulate expectations that Canadian companies would necessarily need to meet, and I think we are seeing the ability to do that. I just led a trade mission to Malaysia, for example, and you are seeing great clean tech companies that are there. BlackBerry has just is working with Malaysia directly on cybersecurity as an example, and I think it's really important that as we do this bilateral work, that we are very clear about what's really important to Canada and what's really important to the Canadian people, and that our trade is both commerce and business growth and investment growth, but it is also done in a way that is respecting Canadian values and those values that are important to Canadians.
Last question.
Minister, Canada has outlined that it wants to expand its relations, economic ties in the region in the Indo-Pacific. Can you tell us a little bit about today's meetings in terms of what these countries are seeking from Canada beyond the trade negotiations we know about? Did any of them raise interest in their own trade deals with Canada? Do they have concerns about security that are hoping Canada can help with? We're just looking for here what did today's meetings.
Yeah, I mean, today's meetings covered. They were focused on the ASEAN economies, the bilateral, the bilateral countries the countries that we met with bilaterally, and a significant part of it was about trade. And the reason it's about trade is because for all of the economies, what they see as an opportunity to work with Canada is a partnership in trade that will actually help grow their economies at the same time. They care about issues that we care about. The growth for small and medium-sized businesses. Many of these countries deal with the impacts of climate change, and how can Canadian solutions be a part of a solution like today the Prime Minister announced with Laos, our contribution to work on the Mekong Commission around water and the environment. Well, that is really important because it's not trade. It's really important around a joint commitment on fighting climate change, but what it also does is it gives expression and opportunity for entrepreneurs who are in this space. And I'll give you a really great example. I mean, because when I was in Vietnam recently, there's a great company, women-led company from Montreal, whose watershed measuring technology is what is actually being tested as a pilot in the Mekong, but in Vietnam. So the work that we're doing on the one hand, which is the commitment and to collaborate on important environmental issues like the working together on the Mekong Commission for Safe Water and the environment, also actually will help some of the work that Canadian entrepreneurs are doing in this region. Because what's really neat about this region is that these are frontier markets. So you're seeing Canadian companies come here and seeing how and taking their innovation, their service, and growing in this region, and I often ask the question, like, why are you here? They said, well, it's a frontier market. We think we can be here on the ground and grow as the economies are growing here.
You said that
Thank you so much,
you said that
everyone.
Canada, New Zealand, and Australia
That's all
all
for
shared their
today.
experiences and perspective about China during this meeting. What kinds of experiences did they share?
Well, I mean, we shared ours, which is the tariffs that we just levied on China, and what we also shared was the consultation that China has taken us to the WTO on, which we will obviously work with the Canadian canola sector, and they shared sort of their the examples from their economies.
Thank you,
Great,
everyone.
thanks so much.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Just